right off got me when you told. I've even shared the video with the jar and the rocks. So all of a sudden I have a completely reversed position on that. Talk to us about that. Many people have seen the it's like an analogy about time, right? Talk us through that.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think that the original parable of the rocks in the jar is terrible or that it doesn't have any wisdom to teach us, but I also sort of object to it. Yeah, right. So the idea, just in case there's somebody there who's been living under a rock rather than listening to parables about rocks. The idea here is that it has many different versions, but like a teacher comes into a classroom and he brings a glass jar and some large rocks and some smaller pebbles and some sand. And he says to the students, how can you fit all these in? And the students try putting in the sand first and the pebbles first, but then they find the big rocks can't fit. And eventually he shows them, no, you've got to put the big rocks in first, and then you can put the pebbles around them, and then you can put the sand in, and you can fit it all in. And this is meant to be a metaphor or an analogy or whatever for priorities in life, right? It's like make time for the things that really matter, and then you can fit the other things in too, and you'll fit all the things that really matter into the jar. If you don't make time for those things first, if you do all the trivialities first, you won't make time for the things that really matter. And I just want to point out that he rigged the whole thing because he only brought enough rocks to the classroom that he knew could be made to fit into this jar as long as you did it in the right way. And I think that the problem we have, maybe always as humans, but definitely in the modern era, is that there are too many big rocks, right? There are just too many things that legitimately matter, that would be legitimate uses of our time if we decided to spend our time on them. Too many things that you could totally defend as a very important priority for your life, and they're not all going to fit in the jar. So actually the challenge is to decide which rocks you're going to not put in the jar, because there are going to have to be some. And that's a harder way to think about things, because it means neglecting things that could make a good call on your time. It means, disappointing certain people, letting go of certain ambitions, things like this. On the other hand, I do think ultimately it's really liberating, because we go through our lives sort of desperately trying to stuff all the rocks into the jar and thinking like that we're bad people, that we're sort of failing morally somehow for not being able to stuff them all into the jar. And I think it's kind of liberating to think like, to realize that like you were never going to get them all into the jar, so you do not have to beat yourself up about that. You're not going to be the perfect parent, the perfect spouse, the perfect employee, the perfect exerciser, perfect house cleaner. You could be some of those, but there are just trade-offs. So we're all in that boat.
And I think giving yourself sort of the mental permission to just know that you're doing the best you can, and that maybe we've got to make these decisions with our time, almost like budgeting. Like you have this great pay yourself first notion.